You don't lose a woman the moment she walks away. The loss happens long before that, quietly, almost invisibly, when she stops respecting you. And here's the hard truth: it rarely happens because you're unattractive, boring, or even broke. It happens because of the small, almost invisible choices you make every single day, choices that send a subtle message that you don't value yourself. Most men never see it coming until it's too late, until the respect they once had is gone, and with it, her emotional investment. In this video, we're going to unpack the key behaviors that make a woman stop taking you seriously, even if she still says she loves you. If you've ever found yourself wondering why she pulled back, why her tone changed, or why the spark in her eyes dimmed, you're about to discover the truth. But first, I want you to ask yourself something. When was the last time a woman genuinely respected you, not just liked you or needed you, but looked up to you? If you have to think for more than a second, that's the problem. Somewhere along the line, you stopped leading with presence and started negotiating for approval. Every man slips into this trap at some point. The question is, will you keep repeating it, or will you finally confront it? If you're ready to take responsibility for your own presence, hit like, subscribe to Hidden Waters, and in the comments write, "I choose respect over comfort." That's your declaration, your reset. Now let's dive into the first behavior that erodes admiration and why it's never really about her, but about your frame. The first mistake is spending like you're trying to buy her love. Flashy gestures, expensive dinners, gifts meant to impress. They might get a temporary reaction, but they do not build long-term respect. The instant she senses your effort is a form of currency to earn her affection. She stops seeing you as a man she wants and starts seeing you as someone to use. Most men don't even notice the shift when it happens. Generosity feels romantic, but in her subconscious, it communicates a different message. He's trying to compensate for a perceived lack of value. Here's why this happens. Women are drawn to emotion, not transactions. When a man lavishes a woman with things she hasn't earned, it doesn't make her feel cherished. It makes her feel powerful. Power kills polarity. She's no longer the one wanting to be chosen. She's the one deciding how far she can push your boundaries before you push back. Imagine paying for her rides, her meals, her gifts, all while thinking it's just being thoughtful. Meanwhile, she's still texting others, posting attention-grabbing photos, and keeping you at arm's length. The more you invest prematurely, the more she questions not your worth, but what else she can extract from you. Women don't fall for the man who buys them things, they fall for the man they can't buy. A man of high value invests only after she's chosen him. Spending from fear, fear she'll lose interest, fear she might pick someone else, places a price on your affection. Spending from strength, when your attention itself is valuable, changes the dynamic. Before you reach for your wallet, ask yourself, am I giving out of generosity or am I negotiating for her approval? The second behavior that destroys respect is apologizing to keep the peace. There's a crucial difference between accountability and submission. The former earns respect, the latter erodes it. Every time you apologize simply to avoid tension, you're sending a dangerous signal. Her feelings are more important than your reality. Many men apologize not because they did something wrong, but because they fear losing her approval. That's not love. It's emotional obedience. And once a woman notices the pattern, she begins to test it, instinctively probing for your limits. Here's the psychology. Women seek emotional stability. A man who immediately folds under tension communicates instability. He lets her mood dictate his behavior, making him part of the storm instead of a calm anchor within it. Imagine she accuses you of being distant because you didn't text while working, and you immediately apologize, "I'm sorry, I should have replied sooner." On the surface, it seems conciliatory, but in her mind, it signals that your emotions are controlled by hers. True strength is staying grounded, listening without bowing, and responding thoughtfully rather than reflexively. Women might appreciate the apology in the moment, but over time, constant emotional surrender destroys respect. They don't want a man who crumbles under discomfort. They want a man who stands firm when the ground shakes. Every unnecessary apology chips away at your authority. Real respect comes from owning your genuine mistakes, and saying sorry only when it's truly deserved. Not every conflict requires a knee, some require patience, composure, and presence. The pattern is clear. The behaviors that quietly strip away her respect are rarely flashy or dramatic. They're the daily, almost invisible choices that show a lack of self-value, spending to impress, apologizing to appease, bending under pressure. Women are drawn to strength, consistency, and emotional integrity. They notice, even if they can't put it into words, when a man honors himself. The moment she sees that, admiration grows. The moment she sees it vanish, so does the spark. Respect is earned in the small, often overlooked details of daily interaction. Presence, not gifts. Accountability, not submission. Confidence, not negotiation. Mastering these behaviors is not about controlling her. It's about controlling your frame, your value, and ultimately, the man she chooses to respect and desire. Because when you apologize for things that aren't your fault, you're not being kind. You're surrendering your frame. Every unnecessary apology chips away at your authority, and once that frame is lost, every word you speak after it risks sounding like begging. It's subtle, almost invisible, but it's devastating to the respect she feels for you. The next trap is defending her when she's wrong. Blind loyalty isn't heroism, it's weakness. When a woman crosses a line and you rush to shield her from consequences, she doesn't feel loved, she feels superior. The moment she realizes you'll protect her no matter what, she stops seeing you as a man of substance and starts managing you instead. Most men confuse defense for devotion, thinking their silence or support is proof of care. But women are finely tuned to emotional signals. They notice the way you bend, the boundaries you ignore, the principles you negotiate just to avoid discomfort. When she senses that you'll defend her missteps, she registers one clear message: he's afraid to lose me. And fear immediately shifts the balance of power. Picture it. You're out, she snaps at a waiter for being slow, and you either laugh it off or glare at the waiter to back her up. She smiles in the moment, but over time, her perception changes. She begins to see you as someone who folds around her chaos, someone whose standards are negotiable. Here's the psychology behind it. Women don't respect men they can guilt into loyalty. They respect men who can look them in the eye and calmly state, "You crossed a line." It's not about confrontation, it's about calibration. It communicates that you have standards, that you're secure enough to challenge her without fear of rejection. When you defend bad behavior, you're teaching her how to disrespect you safely. You're essentially telling her, no matter what I do, he'll protect my image. Once that happens, she stops guarding her own respect, and attraction begins to erode. Support her when it matters, but don't defend the indefensible. A man who can stand grounded in truth is far more magnetic than one who hides behind false harmony. Boundaries that don't waver, even when tested, are what build real respect. And then there's the chasing. The harder you chase, the faster she pulls away. Most men panic when she begins to retreat, mistaking her distance for rejection instead of curiosity. They double text, overcall, or over-explain, thinking persistence shows care. But every attempt to close the gap, paradoxically, pushes her further. Women pull away for one of two reasons: to test your strength or to confirm her exit. How you respond determines everything. If she senses desperation, she labels you predictable. And predictability kills desire. If, however, you remain calm, centered, and unshaken, she begins to reassess your value. Here's why. Women are wired to feel safest with men who are emotionally self-contained. Chasing her withdrawal signals, "Your approval regulates my peace," and nothing kills attraction faster. Imagine she disappears for hours, maybe days, without a reply. You keep refreshing your phone, rewriting text to sound casual, thinking persistence demonstrates care. In reality, it reads as insecurity masquerading as attention. Desire evaporates when a man proves he needs validation to maintain his composure. The question she silently asks during her pullback is simple: can he stay centered without my approval? If yes, curiosity sparks. If no, pity creeps in, and pity is poison to attraction. The solution is counterintuitive. Match her distance, return to your mission, your discipline, your calm. Let your silence carry weight. Real strength isn't proving you matter. It's showing her your value doesn't vanish in her absence. The man who can stand firm while she pulls away is the one she eventually circles back to. Another subtle yet critical mistake is allowing her to control the narrative. Every relationship has a silent author. The one who sets the story's frame controls the power. When a woman dictates the narrative, she decides your role. Many men don't even realize they've handed her the pen. They start as equals and end up passengers in a story someone else writes. Whoever sets the frame dictates the rules of engagement. If she says, "Let's not label this," and you nod, you've already agreed to play a role she designed, the flexible backup. You may think your patience shows maturity, but she sees uncertainty, and women can't fully trust uncertainty. Imagine giving her your time, effort, and affection while she tells friends, "We're just talking." You laugh it off, afraid to push, trying not to scare her away. That silence doesn't buy time, it sells your value. By yielding the frame, you've essentially volunteered for a role where she gets commitment without accountability, benefits without responsibility. Women respect men who define their standards early, who set boundaries, and who refuse to let their value be negotiable. Every choice, whether it's defending her unnecessarily, chasing what pulls away, or letting her dictate the story, signals your level of self-respect. Women sense it intuitively. The man who maintains his frame, respects his own principles, and refuses to negotiate his value is the one who commands admiration and desire. Everything else erodes respect, quietly, invisibly, until suddenly the spark is gone. Attraction isn't built on fear, appeasement, or overgiving. It's built on presence, integrity, and emotional stability. Understanding these dynamics isn't about manipulation. It's about reclaiming your frame, your authority, and your value. Apologize only when you've truly erred. Defend her only when it's fair and just. Don't chase what pulls away. Stay centered. And define the narrative of your own life and relationship early, clearly, without bending to avoid discomfort. These behaviors are subtle, daily choices that shape her respect for you, her desire, and ultimately, the depth of the connection she'll commit to. When you integrate this into your life, you stop negotiating for approval, stop shrinking in her presence, and instead become the man she respects, admires, and chooses, not out of obligation, but because your presence commands it. It's not about dominance, it's about direction. A man who says, "I don't do undefined situations," communicates strength, not pressure, not control, but self-respect. That energy forces her to calibrate because she now knows she's dealing with someone who can walk away without hesitation. Here's the psychology. Women are drawn to men who create structure, not because they want to be controlled, but because structure makes them feel safe. When you leave her to define everything, the pace, the labels, the boundaries, you turn what could be stability into emotional chaos. If she's writing the rules, you're already playing her game. A real man doesn't demand the driver's seat. He naturally takes it through clarity, consistency, and unwavering confidence. So the next time she says, "Let's see where this goes," remember this: where it goes depends on who's holding the map. Another silent killer of respect is the inability to say no. A man who can't set boundaries gradually becomes invisible, someone whose presence loses weight. You may think saying yes shows care, generosity, or dependability, but to a woman, endless compliance signals weakness, not kindness. Women test boundaries not to break you, but to understand whether you can protect your own peace. Each request, each emotional favor, is a subtle question. Are you strong enough to maintain yourself? When the answer is always yes, the test ends, and so does her respect. Picture this. She calls late at night, bored, asking you to drive across town. You're exhausted, you have work in the morning, yet you go. She thanks you with a soft smile, then scrolls on her phone while you drive. The next time she expects the same without even asking. That's the danger of never saying no. You train her that convenience outweighs your boundaries. Psychology is simple. People value what costs them something. If your time, your energy, your presence come without resistance, they lose significance. A man whose yes carries weight commands attention because his presence is chosen, not coerced. Saying no isn't rejection, it's definition. It signals who you are and what you stand for. Before agreeing to the next request, ask yourself, am I saying yes because I want to, or because I fear losing her? That question alone can prevent years of quiet resentment. Love isn't built by bending to everything. Respect is built by holding your line. Women may not always like boundaries, but they trust men who maintain them, and when she knows you can walk away from a request, she begins to understand your value. Closely tied to this is sacrificing your masculinity for approval. The most subtle way a man loses himself is by trading pieces of his identity for her comfort. It doesn't happen all at once. It starts when you skip the gym because she misses you, cancel plans with friends because she isn't in the mood, or stop doing the things that made you feel strong and confident. At first, she may reward the attention, smiles, compliments, words like sweet or attentive, but beneath the surface, the energy shifts. She no longer feels safe or inspired. She feels the weight of carrying your identity. The man she admired, focused, driven, independent, becomes someone emotionally dependent on her approval. Here's the psychology. Attraction thrives on polarity. She's drawn to your direction, your focus, your ambition. When you abandon these to orbit her needs, the polarity that created the spark collapses. Strength turns into need, and need repels. Imagine once passionate goals now filtered through her preferences. You think you're proving love, but she sees a loss of purpose. You cannot earn admiration by shrinking. She cannot respect a man she has to parent. Caretaking kills desire. Compromise is healthy, but self-erasure is fatal. The version of you she respects is the one anchored in direction, the man with gravity, not drift. When you lose your masculinity to provide comfort, you don't gain love. You lose the energy she originally fell for. Stay centered, stay ambitious, and let her orbit your life, not the other way around. Finally, putting her above yourself every time is a quiet killer of respect. At first glance, it sounds noble, romantic even, but repeated prioritization communicates a subtle, fatal message. Her needs, her time, her emotions always come before yours. The moment she internalizes that, the balance of attraction begins to collapse. Women do not lose interest because you care too much. They lose interest when they sense you no longer value yourself equally. Care without self-respect becomes submission. Your time, energy, and priorities must hold weight. Love is mutual, not a hierarchy where one always sacrifices and the other always receives. When she sees a man who respects his own life and choices, she respects him in turn. When she senses a man who continually devalues himself to please her, she begins to devalue him. These behaviors, the inability to say no, sacrificing your identity for comfort, and putting her above yourself, share the same effect. They quietly erode her respect, and with it, her desire. Attraction isn't about grand gestures or constant appeasement. It's built in the way you hold your presence, the consistency of your boundaries, the gravity of your purpose. A woman admires the man who maintains his frame, who stands tall in his direction, who protects his own energy without apology. She feels safe with him, drawn to him, and ultimately chooses him not out of obligation, but because he commands respect, integrity, and presence. Mastering these dynamics isn't about control or manipulation. It's about reclaiming your life, your values, and your identity. Apologize only when warranted. Defend only what deserves defense. Say no when it matters. Protect your masculine energy and refuse to put her above yourself at every turn. These subtle, everyday choices define the man she respects, desires, and ultimately chooses. The version of you she admires is the version anchored in self-respect, direction, and unwavering presence. They lose interest when you stop caring about yourself. The man who cancels his plans whenever she calls, who reshapes his schedule just to fit hers, who drops everything to make her comfortable, is not demonstrating devotion. He's demonstrating dependency. And dependency never earns respect. Here's the psychology behind it. Attraction thrives on tension, on two strong energies meeting in the middle. When one energy constantly yields, the polarity collapses. She stops seeing you as an equal partner and begins seeing you as a convenience. You become the safety net, not the prize. Picture this. She texts, "I'm bored. Come over." You have an early meeting the next morning, but you go anyway, thinking you're proving loyalty. In her mind, she's thinking, he has nothing better going on. And that thought, once formed, lingers quietly, eroding the foundation of attraction. Women cannot respect a man who abandons himself just to be available to them. The truth is simple. A man who prioritizes himself does not push her away. He draws her in. His purpose becomes his gravity, and she feels it even if she cannot put it into words. She recognizes that his world doesn't revolve around her, and that very independence is what makes her want to be part of it. The man she respects and obeys is the man who obeys his own purpose first. That is not arrogance, it is order. When she sees that your goals, your health, and your discipline take priority, she begins to organize her world around you. Loving her does not mean losing yourself. It means showing her that the best version of her can only exist alongside the strongest version of you. So the next time you're tempted to drop everything for her, remember, she doesn't fall for the man who makes her his world. She falls for the man whose world is worth entering. Every failed relationship shares the same silent culprit. Respect dies the moment you stop leading yourself. Not because she stopped loving you, but because you stopped showing up as the man you were meant to be. Respect isn't a reward she gives, it's a mirror of how you show up in life and love. You've seen it now. 8 habits that seem harmless but quietly destroy attraction: spending to impress, apologizing to avoid tension, defending what's wrong, chasing what's walking away, letting her write the story, saying yes when you mean no, sacrificing your masculinity for approval, and putting her above yourself every time. Every one of them springs from the same root: fear of loss. Fear of losing her first makes you lose yourself, and once that happens, everything else falls apart. Here's the truth women recognize intuitively: they don't respect men who never lose, they respect men who never lose themselves. The man who can stand in silence after rejection, who can say no without guilt, who can walk away without anger, that is the man she looks up to. He acts not from fear, but from center. From this moment forward, check every decision, every text, every favor, every apology. Ask yourself, am I acting from power or from fear? If it's fear, stop, reset. Return to the man you were before you started chasing approval. The man with vision, purpose, and self-respect. The man she respects is rarely the loudest, the richest, or the most romantic. He is the one who never trades his self-worth for temporary affection. And if what you've heard here hits something deep, it's because part of you already knows it's true. The part of you that wants to reclaim control, stop pleasing, and lead again. That is your real strength calling, and it will not wait forever. Don't ignore it. If you are ready to rebuild that strength, start now. Subscribe, not for me, but for the man you are becoming. Because the version of you who commands respect isn't lost. He's just waiting for you to stop apologizing for being him.